Welcome to Cause Before Symptom with your host, James Carner.
The 5G conspiracy and zombie apocalypse. Stick around. Welcome to Cause Before Symptom. I'm your host, James Carner. Today is August 28th, 2024, on a Wednesday, right before Labor Day. Welcome, guys. It's good to see you. Good to have you here on the show. I am coming off of working on the motorhome. In fact, I had to, by myself, take apart the air conditioning unit and replace the fan inside the air conditioning unit. There's this blade that broke off, and it shattered and went all over the place and made all kinds of a mess. And being up in the hot sun on top of a van, trying to adjust and move, etc., it was a pain in the rear end. However, as I was doing this, my mind was just fixated on all of these memes and conspiracy theories evolving around 5G and a zombie apocalypse that may come. And I wanted to set your mind at ease tonight, once and for all, that in the event of a zombie apocalypse, it really wouldn't be good for the economy, especially when the Orsini family really want to stay in control through the Federal Reserve. Now, the Breakspear family, on the other hand, would love to release such a pandemic, if you want to call it, on the people. But could they ever do it? I don't know. But we're going to explore the possibilities if it really is something our own government could do. Let's do a shout out to Bushido, She-Lexi, Claire, Edge Genova, or Edie Genova. I guess it's Edie Genova. Boots is in the house, sparking a spleef. Gertison, what is up? A. Hancock, PLP. Guys, thank you so much for being here and being a part of this show. Again, I will read the comments as I do the show. Sometimes I miss because when I'm on some track and the comment doesn't fit with what I'm saying, I just can't put it in. So don't be offended if I don't respond to every comment. But please comment if that's something you guys would like me to do. In fact, I can stop the show and we can talk about the comments and then go back to the show. I'm sure I can work that out. But you guys tell me, what would you like me to do during the show to make it more interesting for you? Because I'm not really doing this for me. I am exploring information that could be a conspiracy or a real truth topic that needs to be exposed. And you guys are a part of that. And I appreciate every one of you and your views. The 5G conspiracy and zombie apocalypse is my show tonight. And it may have something to do with the influenza flu. The exact origin of the influenza virus is unknown. Hello, Amanda. But it's believed to have been circulating among humans for thousands of years. The reason why I bring this up is because there is a rumor that radio towers give people the flu. So let's see if we can debunk this. The earliest recorded reference to a disease with flu-like symptoms comes from the Greek physician Hippocrates. I think it's Hippocrates or Hippocrates. It's like Socrates, but I think it's Hippocrates, who described it in his 6th book of epidemics around 412 BC. However, it's important to note that this doesn't definitively prove the existence of the influenza virus at that time. Over time, influenza has evolved and mutated, leading to various strains and pandemics throughout history. The most recent major pandemic was the 1918 Spanish flu, which infected an estimated 500 million people worldwide and caused between 20 and 50 million deaths. I remember there was this meme that showed radio towers. When they were put up, the outbreak started. And they said, every time we upgrade our communications grid, then an outbreak of influenza happens. Well, let's do a deep dive into that. When the first radio towers were erected in the late 1800s, the outbreak of the Spanish flu didn't come at around that time. In fact, it finally came around 1918. The first radio tower was erected in 1895 by Guglielmo Marconi. Guglielmo. What a name. Wow. But we've all heard of Marconi, right? He used a tall wooden pole to support his antenna, which was a critical component for transmitting radio signals over long distances. Now, Marconi's experiments and innovations played a significant role in the development of radio technology and communication, too. By 1910, there were likely several hundred radio towers erected worldwide. So in 8 years, do you think several hundred radio towers worldwide could kill 50 to 100 million people? The exact number is difficult to determine due to the early stages of radio technology and limited documentation back then. But here's what we know. Early adoption, radio technology was rapidly developing and gaining popularity in the early 20th century. There were amateur and commercial use of the radio. Both radio enthusiasts and commercial entities were building and using radio towers for various purposes, such as communication, experimentation, and broadcasting. Geographical distribution. Towers were erected in different countries and regions, depending on the level of technological advancements and infrastructure. While the total number of towers in 1910 is uncertain, it's clear that radio technology was experiencing significant growth and expansion during this period. By 1918, the number of radio towers worldwide had significantly increased. The exact count is challenging to ascertain, but due to the rapid growth of radio technology and limited documentation during this era, however, we can estimate that thousands of radio towers were erected by 1918. This surge was driven by factors such as World War I. The war accelerated the development and use of radio communication for military purposes. Commercial broadcasting, the emergence of radio stations led to a demand for more towers to transmit signals over wider areas. Amateur radio, enthusiasts continued to build and operate their own radio stations, contributing to the overall number of towers. Again, a precise figure is difficult to pin down, but it's clear that radio technology had become widespread and influential by the time the 1918 influenza pandemic broke out. So thousands were erected versus hundreds. Could radio have caused the influenza pandemic? The radiation emitted from early radio towers was primarily electromagnetic radiation. This type of radiation is a form of energy that travels through space in waves. It's similar to the radiation emitted by the sun, but with a lower energy level. Here are some key components about the radiation from early radio towers. The radio waves, most of the radiation emitted by these towers was in the form of radio waves, Radio waves are a type of electromagnetic radiation with wavelengths longer than visible light. They are non-ionizing radiation. Unlike ionizing radiation such as X-rays or gamma rays, which we know are not good for our health, radio waves do not have the energy to remove electrons from atoms like ionizing radiation such as X-rays do. This means they are generally considered safe for human exposure. Low levels of exposure, an example, early radio towers typically emitted relatively low levels of electromagnetic radiation. This was due to the limited power and efficiency of the transmitting equipment at that time. Note that while the radiation from early radio towers was generally safe, excessive exposure to any type of electromagnetic radiation can potentially have negative health effects. However, the levels of radiation emitted by these towers were well below any known harmful thresholds. So the likelihood of radio waves generating enough electromagnetic radiation to cause the world to face this flu and 50 million to 100 million people die doesn't make any sense, since many cities worldwide actually didn't even have radio towers. Yet they faced the Spanish flu. Also, the flu affected sailors on the sea, and there were towers on the sea, so most likely the influenza flu was just a virus. The towers did generate radiation, this is true. But if there was harm against the people, and 50 million to 100 million actually died from the radio emissions, then that was silenced. Academia says, yes, there have been studies examining the potential health effects of early radio tower radiation. While the overall consensus is that the radiation emitted by these towers was generally safe, some studies have explored potential risks. Here are some key points. There is limited evidence. Most studies have found limited evidence to suggest that exposure to radiation from early radio towers caused significant health problems. Non-ionizing radiation, as mentioned earlier, the radiation emitted by these towers was primarily non-ionizing, which generally considered less harmful than ionizing radiation. There have been long-term studies. Some studies have examined the long-term health effects of exposure to radio tower radiation. And while these studies have not found definitive links to serious health problems, more research is needed to fully understand the potential risks. More research is needed. You mean after 100 freaking years, we still need to figure this one out? I just didn't buy it, so I dove deeper. Yes, there have been lawsuits against radio towers and their alleged harm. While these cases are relatively rare, they often involve claims of health problems or property damage attributed to radiation emitted by the towers. Here are some common lawsuits related to it. Health concerns. Some individuals have claimed that exposure to radiation from radio towers has caused health problems, such as headaches, fatigue, and more serious conditions. Property damage. Others have alleged that radio towers have caused damage to their property, such as interference with television or radio signals, or decreased property values. Other lawsuits were from electromagnetic hypersensitivity, or EHS. Some individuals who claim to be sensitive to electromagnetic fields have filed lawsuits against radio towers, arguing that the radiation has caused them significant health problems. Note that the outcomes of these lawsuits can vary widely. While some plaintiffs have been successfully or successful in obtaining settlements or verdicts. Many cases have been dismissed due to lack of evidence of scientific consensus regarding the potential health risks associated with radio tower emission. But did they cause the Spanish flu? I don't think so. It's an interesting theory, and yes, technology does come with health concerns. But I don't see a clear connection as the flu would continue like an outbreak every year due to the towers being on and upgraded and so on and so on. Meaning people would just continuously be sick after sick after sick and would grow and people would be dying, especially more than 50 to 100 million people as they upgraded the wavelengths. Wouldn't the flu get worse and not remain the same? Well, it could be up for debate. There is no evidence of flu outbreaks in cell towers either. However, cell towers emit the exact same kind of radiation as radio towers, electromagnetic radiation. Frequency refers to the number of waves that pass a given point in a given amount of time. That is measured in hertz. Radio waves. The towers typically operate in the frequency range of 30 kilohertz to 300 gigahertz. Now, 300 gigahertz is a lot. So, standing around a radio tower operating at 300 gigahertz probably will give you headaches, nausea, dizziness, and if exposed long enough, could perhaps harm your health. This includes AM radio, which operates at 535 kilohertz to 1605 kilohertz, but FM radio operates at 88 millihertz to 108 millihertz, and other radio services. So 300 gigahertz, pretty rare. But it wouldn't surprise me if military had such capabilities, especially when they're using it for radar. And being around those radar stations probably could affect your health. Now, cell phone signals are a little bit different. Cell phones use a variety of frequencies, not just one, but many. But most modern networks operate in the 4G LTE frequency bands of 700 megahertz, 1700 megahertz, 2100 megahertz, and 2500 megahertz. Now, that's megahertz, not gigahertz. Megahertz is lower. But 5G networks use even higher frequencies, such as 3.5 gigahertz, 28 gigahertz, and sometimes 60 gigahertz. Now, the WHO has approved 3.5 gigahertz as the safest level of exposure. Now, 5G towers, not just this typical cell tower, but an actual real 5G tower that emits really fast downloading speeds. Those are supposed to be at 3.5 gigahertz, but they're not. They're actually up to 28. Some even say up to 30 gigahertz. Now, that's a stretch from the 300 gigahertz that FM radio towers are being used by either the military or by FM radio stations. But again, it's a stretch. Now, the WHO has approved 3.5 gigahertz. Anything between 28 to 60 gigahertz is harmful to your health. And I'll explain why a little bit later on. The main difference in emissions between radio and cell towers is the frequency range that they use. They can turn up the frequency or turn it down and hone it down on certain things. But they use multiple frequencies to get data to go from one end to the other, back and forth. Radio just emits information outward, but cell towers receive and send. That's the difference. Both types of towers emit electromagnetic radiation, primarily in the form of radio frequency waves, or RF waves. Sounds benign. But when they get turned up, they could cause some problems. While there have been many concerns about the potential health effects of RF radiation, numerous studies have found no definitive link between exposure to these waves and serious health problems. The levels of RF radiation emitted by both cell towers and radio towers are generally well below any known harmful thresholds, according to academia, of course. Note that the specific frequencies used by cell towers and radio towers can vary. They're different. But this does not significantly impact their safety. Both types of towers are designed to operate within safe limits set by regulatory agencies. Anytime you hear of a regulatory agency, you just know that they are working for the corporations in order to get their crap out there. Now, in World War II, soldiers, our veterans, thank you for serving, used long-wave and short-wave radio packs on their back to communicate between Central Command and other squadrons or platoons, and even planes. These radio packs were early cell phone technology and emitted radiation, sending information back and forth, like a walkie-talkie. But again, there is no real evidence that the operators got sick or had the flu or died from the flu from operating those packs in World War II. We have heard rumors of 5G radio towers that are connected to streetlights. And people who took the COVID shot could turn into zombies. There are also 2 movies out there that uses cell towers to turn people into zombies. Well, how likely could an event like that really happen? What would need to be put in the body to be activated? No, it is not theoretically possible for a zombie apocalypse to be triggered by an injection using cell towers, according to academia, and here's why. Academia says biological impossibility. The concept of zombies, as portrayed in popular culture, involves the reanimation of the dead. This biologically is impossible. The human brain, once it has ceased to function, cannot be reactivated. I would agree with that. Cell tower function. Cell towers are electronic devices designed to transmit and receive radio signals. They do not have the capability to interact with biological organisms or trigger any kind of biological process. I would agree with that too, because it's a non-ionizing form of radio wave. And there's no scientific basis or evidence to support the idea that a substance inside you could be injected into the body to cause a zombie-like state. Such a scenario is purely fictional and does not have any basis in reality. Again, this is all academia. While the idea of a zombie apocalypse is intriguing, it's important to remember that it may be just a work of fiction and does not reflect scientific reality. Well, that's what academia says. You see, they refuse it. While it's possible for a virus to mutate and cause a new disease, the resulting illness would likely follow a more traditional disease course rather than something resembling a zombie apocalypse. What they're saying is there is no real virus that can cause something like that, where it turns them into the dead and just want to eat brains. But I also saw a video of supposed CIA training on zombie attacks. And it looked pretty legit to me. I don't know. I've never been to one of those meetings, but it sure seemed like someone was sneaking their cell phone in and recording. And they were talking about manuals and how to respond to a zombie attack in your city. CIA, training on zombie attacks. Hospitals have contingency plans as a precautionary measure to prepare for a variety of extreme scenarios, including pandemics, natural disasters, zombie apocalypse, to civil unrest. But they have them. While the concept of zombies is fictional, these plans can be adapted to address real-world crises that may involve large numbers of sick or injured people. While the CIA does not publicly acknowledge training in zombie warfare, it is reasonable to assume that they have contingency plans in place for a variety of scenarios, including potential pandemics or a zombie apocalypse. This would likely include training in how to deal with large numbers of people who have been infected or incapacitated, as well as how to protect themselves and others in such a scenario. Now, obviously, there is something going on if the CIA is doing drills and training their officers how to deal with zombies, and the hospitals have a zombie apocalypse plan. Something's going on. And the Secret Service knows what's going on. So this is true, that the hospitals have a zombie contingency plan. But we don't have any real proof other than these could actually just be practical jokes. Now, as an amateur journalist, I can't say this is fact or fiction. It requires some major digging. And you know me, I decided to dig. And guess what I found? The CIA released a classified article written in November of 1991 in an insider CIA newspaper that was called The Daily Snap. And I'm going to read it to you. Now, as I got it, I had to cut and paste and try to take it from an image that was blacked out. I couldn't see a lot of the stuff, but this is what I was able to capture. This issue, again, was in 1991 of the Daily Snap. This is what they say. This is a newspaper distributed between the CIA, inside, not outside of the CIA or outside into the public. It quotes, "It would be tempting to turn psychological weapons against one's own people and make millions of them forget about discontent with the system or social inequality, about the struggle for peace and about their civil rights. Oppressed but joyful, fleeced by monopolies but content with everything. Wouldn't this be the ideal citizen from view of the ruling circles in the countries of the West?" Yeah. This is what newspapers of our own wrote quite recently about MK Ultra, an ultra-secret program of American intelligence which was aimed at turning people into zombies en masse. But we know now that we ourselves have not escaped such brainwashing stories about design bureaus at which instruments have developed for producing long-distance effects on the human mind have begun to appear in the press. Among the mail that we receive from our readers has been a trickle of letters which mention individual brainwashing, mysterious psychological weapons. Vladimir Nikotivich Volchenko is a professor of the Moscow State Technical University. He is a Bowman and deputy chairman of the USSR Union of Scientific Engineering Societies Committee on Bioenergy Information Processing, which is called Bioenergoinformatica, something like that, Formatica. He took part in preparing materials on the question of protecting citizens against psychological terror for the USSR Supreme Soviet Court. For such cases to become fewer, people must first be rescued from psychological terror, which is now occurring, said Volchenko. The term psychological terror refers to factors which adversely affect human consciousness. Stay with me now. Politics and ideology are not the only ones which should be mentioned. Among the rest are hypnosis shows at stadiums and on television. After the trailblazer, magician, psychotherapist, he comes in with hundreds of his followers who have been given a similar performance. Trickster. But the trouble is not even that many of these therapists are elementary acquisitors who are out to make an easy buck in a hurry. This is a topic for a separate conversation. Danger elsewhere. Mass sessions of this kind have a substantial impact on the hypnotizability of millions of televiewers. The sessions heighten it. This means that the viewers stand a greater chance of being turned into zombies. The runaway UFO psychosis spawned by television is another example from letters and in the course of personal conversations. My colleagues on the Bioenergoinformatica Committee and I have established numerous cases of psychosis on topics of contacts with unidentified flying objects. It's very dangerous. Is there a way of preventing mass creation of zombies? Of course. And is it known to the whole world? It consists primarily in accepting a new thinking model which involves human spirituality. It must never be forgotten that for humanity, the optimal order of tasks which are accomplished proceeds from morality and ecology to economics and politics. In our country, it's the other way around at present. Politics, economics, ecology, morality. Do you think that we can have a future with the cart before the horse? From the editors, they acknowledge that psychological weapons exist. And the information media, which have long been a tool for the ideological brainwashing of the masses, are probably one of the most prevalent of pushing out this information. But the information about the psychological weapons has been confirmed for some time. The editors have received a report about a discovery and an invention of a method of inducing artificial sleep at a distance by means of radio waves registered by the State Committee, to our knowledge. A Dipnotech radiaterasis through Ben Bolton as Ben Knowledge. I don't know what that means, but remember, I had to cut and paste from all that crap. It's a hypnotic radiator, and it has been built and has been successfully tested in a military unit. It appears, that's the end of that article, it appears the USSR in the 1920s first started using psychoweapons on their people through drugs and radio waves. It was so successful that the United States picked up on it. The United States copied and perfected the USSR's method, artificially inducing sleep from a distance. Now think about this. They have the technology since at least the 20s and 30s, using radio waves and drugs to put you to sleep from a distance of a van, from the distance of a Model T. This was 100 years ago. It appears the government actually can create zombies by using drugs and radio waves. And I am sure that after 100 years, the military has perfected all sorts of psychological inventions at their disposal, and zombies aren't a stretch anymore. because the CIA, in their own internal newspaper, has admitted that they can create it. I'll explain what that looks like. It's not the type of zombies that you're thinking. Now, by using drugs and radio waves, they can convince the masses to think they are zombies and carry out what would appear to be a zombie apocalypse. And they admit that academia doesn't believe in it, which gives the government a plausible excuse to actually play around with it. So, I hate to say it, but there is proof that the possibility of a mass psychosis zombie apocalypse could be created by the government. This means that by using radio waves and drugging they can make you think like all you want to do is just eat people. They can do this. I found the proof. The CIA admitted it to their own staff in a newspaper. Now, what does this have to do with 5G? Well, in order for the zombie apocalypse to work as a psyop against the people, they would need electromagnetic radiation everywhere the subjects are. If the zombies leave the city and go into the woods, the radio strength would disappear and they would come out of the psychosis. The signal needs to be constant, and wherever there is a natural Faraday cage, where the Earth's magnetic field messes with frequency, they would need to put up a 5G light there to boost the signal. The same concept would be for blue lights in very odd spaces in cities. And the blue lights could also be used to see if someone has taken the luciferase. The same concept would be for the blue lights in odd places. The mass hypnotic trance could be affiliated with blue LED lights and their bizarre locations for the purpose of keeping the panic going. Now, whether it is 5G or 6G that's emitting the radio signal along with the drug that was given to you, it could have been in the shot. The signal that they put out is a two-way transmission to send and receive data. So I doubt it would affect those who were just drinking the drinking water. They would need lots of drugs to do that. The quickest way to get you drugged and use this technology against you would be a shot. Perhaps the mRNA shot did have a smart dust self-assembling computer and antenna to track the zombies themselves. Luciferase, that is purportedly in the vaccine, could be the formula to check if someone is a zombie, which we already have apps on the cell phone that can scan for it. A zombie apocalypse was theoretically possible to do in the 1990s, as the CIA newspaper revealed. Imagine what they can do now in 2024. Perhaps depopulation is on the agenda for the ignorant, whom took the shot without doing their own research. This gives the government an excuse for the outbreak, a way of saying, the shot did it, but we didn't force you to take it. That's on you. And since Congress gave Big Pharma the big get-out-of-jail-free card, well, they would use the same logic on you as well. So could it happen? Using 5G? Yes. But will it happen? Most likely no. This is, if turned on and used against us, mutually assured destruction. A weapon to threaten and use against other countries. That's what it is. A way of saying, use the dollar instead of the yuan or ruble, or we will destroy your country with a zombie apocalypse. Otherwise, why would the government do this to themselves? They create the weapons mainly for leverage and not to use on its citizens, although they do test it on them. The economy would crash and the dollar would die if they released it upon themselves, wouldn't it? Don't the Orsinis want the Federal Reserve to continue? Why would they crash the economy to that extent where it would ruin the Federal Reserve and their control mechanism? There is no wisdom in that, unless the return of their Savior is here, sits in the third temple that's built in Jerusalem, and demands depopulation this quickly. Sure. But is that likely to happen? No. The odds of it happening nationwide is very low, unless Russia or China did it to us as a weapon. But that hurts and alienates them, thus war would begin, and it's obvious they are not the provocateurs here. It's the United States that is the evildoer whom creates weapons like this for mafia-style control. So they've experimented on us. The Travis Scott concert is a great example of the government's experimentation of mind control using drugs and radio waves. You see, when you went to the concert, you cannot bring in your own water. So whatever they served there was most likely a cocktail of mind control mixed with radio waves to create the crowd to move wherever they wanted them to move. 10 people died and hundreds wounded. That's a lot of people. But this happened before. In fact, in 1979, 11 people died at the Who concert in Cincinnati. Maybe they had the technology then and were testing it out to see if it worked with cell towers this time. This is just speculation, as there is no real evidence to point the government to the deaths at those concerts. But it would be a good way to prove to your opposition of what you are capable of doing with large crowds with a single push of the button. I don't think it would be far-fetched to send a letter to North Korea that we can zombify their nation using Elon Musk's satellites and spray the cocktail in the air. Just one example of how to use this weapon, if real, as leverage. As scary as all of this may seem, the government has concocted even worse things. So don't worry. I doubt we're going to have a zombie apocalypse. They have Tesla technology that can crack the earth in half. We have the ability to create a small black hole that can suck everything in it. We do. And we have the Black Plague sitting in labs, ready to be released, that could kill hundreds of millions of people. We have it. We have the technology to kill ourselves 10 times over. And psychotic men have tried to do it over the years. You just never heard about it because the plans had been thwarted by either acts of God, UFOs, or our own Secret Service. Even fast depopulation is just too extreme for the sensitive economy. So don't expect masses to start keeling over soon because they took the COVID jab. And how many times have we come close to a nuclear war? In 1962, the Cuban Missile Crisis was considered the closest the world has ever come to nuclear war. The Soviet Union deployed nuclear missiles to Cuba, leading to a tense standoff with the United States. A miscalculation or a rash decision could have triggered a nuclear exchange. Or the 1983 Soviet nuclear false alarm. A computer glitch in the Soviet early warning system mistakenly indicated that the United States had launched a nuclear attack against them. The duty officer, Stanislav Petrov, decided not to report the incident to higher authorities, and he prevented a nuclear retaliation. In 1995, the Norwegian rocket incident, a Russian early warning system mistook a peaceful scientific rocket launch over Norway for a nuclear missile attack. It took several minutes for Russian officials to realize the mistake, avoiding a potential nuclear response. And those are the ones that you can Google. These are just the ones that you were informed about. There have been countless of submarine mishaps and computer glitches that almost led to nuclear war, and none of those are ever reported. And you're not even aware of those. Dozens of them. That doesn't include the madmen who have seized Cold War nukes from the USSR, creating suitcase nukes. You haven't heard about those either. There are dozens of cases involved in cities that were almost being blown up by some psychotic individual with a hard-on to kill people. And again, no one knows about it because the government wants to keep it that way for national security reasons. You see, if a bomb like that blew up in America, it would screw the economy, and the Federal Reserve is controlled by the Vatican or the Jesuits or the Orsini family. And it's just not in their interest to destroy what they've worked on for over 500 years. They want the economy to continue so they can keep robbing the people and earn for themselves. It would take a calamity to happen without interference. And that never happens because in this world there are no coincidences. Everything happens for a reason, and that is money and power. Now, the 5G theory of microwaving us due to heavy metals is my favorite conspiracy theory. No, I don't think 5G technology can microwave people's insides, even if their bodies were filled with heavy metals. Here's why. There's a frequency mismatch. 5G operates on radio frequencies, which are much lower than the frequencies used in microwave ovens. Microwave ovens use electromagnetic waves that resonate with the water molecules in food, causing them to heat up in an enclosed space. 5G frequencies are just too low and too spread out to have this effect on human tissue. But does it heat us up? It does a little. Power limitations, even if 5G frequencies could affect human tissue, the power levels used in 5G networks are just far too low to cause significant heating. They're designed to be safe for human exposure. Remember, the WHO said nothing more than 3.5 gigahertz. But can we trust the WHO? No. And heavy metals, if they're inside you, the heavy metals can be harmful to the body, but they do not significantly increase a person's susceptibility to electromagnetic radiation. Heavy metal poisoning is a separate health issue that is not related to 5G technology. So, think of it like this. They're trying to say that if you take a fork and put it in the microwave, turn it on, the fork causes the microwave to cause lightning and blow it up, okay? And they're saying that when 5G is turned on to its extreme, up to 30 gigahertz, then the heavy metals in your body would freak out, and the same would happen, and you would keel over and die. I don't buy it. I just don't buy it. Because if they did that, it would be so damn obvious that all the people near 5G towers would keel over and die, and all the people out in the woods wouldn't. I think it's a harmful conspiracy theory that has no scientific basis. I think it's important that we rely on credible sources of information to avoid spreading misinformation. I am all about the cause before the symptom, but I just don't see how 5G and the metals are spraying in us is really the goal is to microwave us. I just don't see it. But if this was the case, then anyone in a city standing next to a 5G tower at 30 gigahertz would get really sick, wouldn't they? Especially with heavy metals inside them. Since these towers are bolted and not mobile, anybody else walking by would get sick too. Even if they turn up the frequency. For example, radio towers operate at 100 to 300 gigahertz, haven't heated up a person's body enough to claim a public health concern. Heck, I have seen radio towers just next to homes. Now, I know that there were some health concerns and effects that happened by being that close to radio towers. But there's a radio tower, like 5 of them, right off of a major highway. And people passing through them could be getting radiated by the electromagnetism, but nobody is putting out big cases enough to make a difference for academia to say, yeah, we need to look into this. Same with 5G. It does affect health, don't get me wrong, but not at extreme measures. For example, 5G is old news. You see, 6G is coming. What happened to all the dead people and zombies due to 5G? 6G is already almost here. Should be here by what, next year? What happened to all the dead people? We were told that 5G was going to kill 2/3 of the planet. I just think we're witnessing over-sensualization of misinformation to keep us distracted so we don't look at what the evildoers are actually doing. If cell towers are the boogeyman, then there has to be more harm now more than ever. To cover up the cell tower damage would be really hard given it's worldwide. Not that it isn't possible to cover it up. Just common sense tells me they can turn on switches inside the body for a zombie apocalypse, but cannot heat up our innards. The hospitals are mostly filled with respiratory illness and heart disease. This isn't a cell tower issue, rather a heavy metal geoengineering and parasite issue. And speaking of, please consider ElitePotion.com. Our ingredients cancels the chemtrails and kills the parasites that cause cancer. Now, Forbes wrote a good piece debunking 5G and the microwave agenda of the CIA. There might be some illogical psychosomatic effects that because people believe that the cell site near their home is affecting them, it actually is, but in terms of direct medical harm, this is a fiction. There is a bit which is almost correct, is that there are plans for lots of small cells, but small cell towers are different. Small cells and and cell towers are two different things. A small cell tower is an oxymoron. It's the mobile phone networks planning the small cell installation, not the government. And as for covering the whole country, we can only wish that were true. Of course, there are always detractors for almost any new technology, and health concerns around mobile phones have been a feature for at least 30 years now. Still, without any real solid evidence and proof. For all its flaws, the criticisms leveled here against 5G are, as you'd imagine, rather ridiculous. It's amusing that to find out more, you're encouraged to visit a website, which most will do using their own cell phone. Now, for all we know, the CIA put Forbes in the position to write that it causes no harm. They could do that. This could be for the lobbyists who spend millions on campaign contributions to hush up any harmful effects of cell towers. Sure, they are unnatural, and there will be blowback for such technology health-wise, but it's not causing consistent pandemics that can't be controlled. Only COVID was pointed at, and that pandemic is over, according to the Biden administration. The earliest known description of cancer, which some say that cell phone towers cause, dates back to ancient Egypt around 3000 BC. It was found in the Edwin Smith Papyrus, an ancient Egyptian medical textbook. While the term cancer wasn't used specifically, the document describes a tumor and its removal by cauterization. You see, cancer isn't a new disease. They had cancer in Egypt, Greece, and Rome, and they all described it historically. So academia doesn't believe cancer comes from radio and cell towers, or it started around 1918. Radiation is apparently harmful to parasites, so we can't put 5G to cancer as well. As I have found out that the parasites that eat you poop out the bacteria that causes the tumors. If all cell towers were turned up, they are emitting non-ionizing radiation. This doesn't split the cells up like microwave does. It would need the full force of even the satellites, like Elon Musk's satellites, pushing down 5G on us. But that can't be enough to char the humans. But that doesn't mean there isn't data supporting cell towers and cancer. According to the NIH's own website, there is evidence for a health risk by RF on humans, radio frequency, on humans living around mobile phone base stations, from radio frequency sickness to cancer. The objective of this work was to perform a complete review of the existing scientific literature to update the knowledge on the effects of base station antennas on humans. Studies performed in real urban conditions with mobile phone base stations situated close to apartments were selected. Overall results of this review show 3 types of effect by base station antennas on the health of people: radio frequency sickness, cancer, and changes in biochemical parameters. Considering all of the studies reviewed globally, 73.6% showed effects, 73.9% or 75% for changes in biochemical parameters. So, yes, it does cause radio frequency sickness and leads to cancer and shows the effects. Furthermore, studies that did not meet the strict conditions to be included in this review provided important supplementary evidence. This is on the NIH's website. And I have the links. The existence of similar effects from studies by different sources, but with radio frequency of similar characteristics, such as radar, radio, and television antennas, wireless smart meters, and laboratory studies, reinforce the conclusions of this review. 75% all across the board, people were having problems. Of special importance are the studies performed on animals or trees near base stations, antennas, that cannot be aware of their proximity, to which psychosomatic effects can never be attributed. And let's not forget about the World Health Organization. They created reports about the effects of 5G based on mixed epidemiological evidence on humans regarding an association between exposure of RF radiation from wireless phones and head cancers, which is called glioma and acoustic neuroma. RF fields have been classified by the International Agency for Research on Cancer as possibly carcinogenic to humans. Studies to date provide no indication that environmental exposure to RF fields, such as from base stations, increases the risk of cancer or any other disease. But they're saying, and it reads, have been classified by the International Agency, the Research on Cancer, as possibly carcinogenic to humans. So it is possible, but they won't make the time to actually study it further, thanks to the lobbyists. Just like Gemini AI can't tell me what the cause of cancer is. Even after thousands of years of it being around and all the technology we have at our fingertips, we can't even find the cause of it. And that's fishy and absurd. So if the cell towers possibly can lead to cancer, could they truly microwave us? If so, it would be a slow death. Nothing like a pandemic. The most plausible answer here is we are slowly getting used to electromagnetic radio waves and adapting to it as normal. This means there is health risk, yes, but it will eventually go away as we merge with this intrusion. Now, the Bible says in the end of days, written by Daniel, iron will mix with clay, but it will have problems doing so. And I believe this is one of those problems. It would take hundreds of years to adapt to silicon and metal, which is why I believe geoengineering is also a form of terraforming for the return of the Nephilim. Cell phone towers can be used as a weapon, and we have already been experimented on as a show of force to others. Only whistleblowers can give a glimpse into the compartmentalized secrets of the government and their plans for coercion against other countries. But to unleash full force on its own citizens would mean the end of the country as a whole. A last-ditch effort to kill them all before the evidence comes into fruition. But that is highly unlikely as America is vast and bigger than the easier European countries to exploit. An operation that big would cost too much and leave the economy in shambles, all for bricks to pick up the pieces. But I doubt the owners of the Federal Reserve are interested in crashing our economy and killing us with microwaves, radiation, or let alone a zombie attack. It's possible, but not profitable.
If you're looking for a publication that delivers honest takes and critical insights into the issues of our day, then look no further than The Flame Paper. The Flame Paper is written for the people, by the people, who aren't afraid to challenge a mainstream narrative, be it healthcare, voter fraud, political correctness, or even the one world government. The Flame is full of timely articles, reports, and expert advice written by freedom-loving, truth-telling experts, journalists, and concerned citizens. To subscribe, go to theflameusa.com.
Go to The Flame. Sign up. Get the newspaper. The information is just like what I put out every single day. If you guys like what I have to say, you will definitely like the Flame USA newspaper and the authors and writers that they have and what they have to say. It's only $6 a month. It's not a lot for a newspaper delivered once a month that you can read while you're sitting on the can. Why not? Now, we're still selling Elite Potions, Whimsy Worm Wash, and Nickel Nixer Elixir. Okay? Both of these combined stop all of the chemtrails from entering your body, because your body will naturally, using this, bind to the heavy metals and flush them out of your system. And it will also kill the parasites that your stomach cannot, thanks to crude oil and Standard Oil, who decided that it would be great to get to get oil into our diets. And we can't do this. This isn't good. This was designed for you guys to feel better and live longer. That's it. I know a lot of people say it's expensive, but I'm telling you, you get what you pay for. These kinds of days where all of your food is tainted with disease, parasites, heavy metals, chemicals, you cannot live any longer without taking supplements. That's just the world we live in today. And you need to budget for it. I wish I could find you a more cheaper product, but nobody sells it combined like this. And believe me, it would be the same price if you went anywhere else. However, nobody has the ingredients that we do. In fact, they have two-thirds less ingredients than we do. You see, we put all the ingredients in, not just a few of them to save money. We want to make sure you guys are healthy, clean, happy, and will live longer. Also, the Bible says to live a long life, honor your mother and your father. That's all you have to do. But take this if you want to feel better, okay? Go to elitepotion.com. All right. Breaking news. So Vance apparently says Kamala can go to hell regarding the Arlington Cemetery event. Who cares? Americans' kids were kicked off a bus and allowed invaders to come on. So basically, immigrants have more rights than the American kids do now on buses. Trump slams prosecutors as deranged. Of course he does, because he is too as well. Several states refuse to remove RFK Jr. name from the ballots. That's going to hurt Trump. Who cares? Voting only makes a difference locally in your city, sometimes county, especially for the sheriff. But voting the state and federal, most likely they're rigged. Why? Is because corporations make money by having control. And they don't want anyone to get in their way. That's why it's really hard for states to flip from blue or red. And when they do, there was a war going on in that state between two ruling families. Not the Illuminati, but the families that fight against each other and fight for control over the state. You see, the Republican Party, they're compromised. They're evil. The Democratic Party, they're compromised. They're evil. They've been playing a two-party system to divide and conquer us for years. And to think that your vote counts federally, nationwide, when corporations will make more money with Kamala in versus Trump, you're out of your mind thinking your vote counts. I'm sorry. But they rig it. And they're going to make darn sure the Christians don't overdo it this time again. You see, they learned from their mistakes from 2020. They learned from their mistakes from 2016. We have to understand that those that are in charge of America are too high up for us little stooges to pick a fight with. The only way you can make change in your country is to locally get involved in politics. Meaning, get involved with your city. Run for office in your city. That's the only way you're going to make a difference. You cannot pray the evil out of America because America is owned by Satan himself. He belongs here because, well, the elite put him here. We live in a fallen world. We are just ambassadors to the kingdom of heaven, representing another place. We are told not to love this world and anything in it. So for us to have some duty or responsibility to save this world, that's insane. It goes against all biblical principles. We are to provide the example of what it's like to be a part of the kingdom of heaven. In a way, you could call us ambassadors. And what does an ambassador get when they go into another country? They get treated very well and respected. But the ambassador doesn't go in and try to change how they vote or how they pray or what gods they worship. We're just representing our country. The Bible says, he that have eyes, let him see, or ears, and let them hear. We're not to evangelize to people who aren't ready or want to hear what we have to say. So knocking on doors, turn or burn, sending tracts, pushing people towards your agenda. Your job isn't to create utopia here on earth. Your job is to represent Jesus Christ. When he comes, then the utopia begins. And it's not going to be a state or a country. It actually starts with a city, just a city. Jerusalem, the new Jerusalem. It's important to know your role in Christianity. You will not feel good and be happy and have joy if you take the responsibility of the country going to shit. The country was always going to go to shit. Any ism presented to the people was long planned to go up and back down by the elites. The elites worship Satan, Beelzebub, Lucifer, whoever you want to call him, this fallen angel that apparently says he loves human beings and got a bad rap from God. I don't buy it. And I am biased towards Christianity because I grew up in it and I studied it and I actually became a pastor. Not because I wanted to. I tried to push it off many times. I just wanted to hold myself accountable to my actions by taking that next step and becoming ordained. And believe me, I know that pastors will get in trouble for preaching a gospel that is outside of the Bible. I'm aware of that. But I'm also aware of my enemy. And I am pretty good at understanding how the enemy works. You see, you can't fight against an enemy, protect yourself against an enemy, unless you know how they operate. And that is why I, on this show, have always tried to expose the esoteric meanings behind things, trying to expose to you what happens to churches and why people get hurt from them. It's not because the church had bad intentions. It's because Wiccans and covens and witches and warlocks enter into the church to sow discord. And the pastors don't have enough of a relationship with God to discern who is the predator. Modern day Christian churches are the Pharisees of old. They're just in it for the glory and the money. That's it. I remember today speaking to a restaurant owner whom is a friend of mine. And she was telling me of a very big local church here in Central Oregon that would usually once a month reserve a big party and get treated by the restaurant. And they would pay. And they had a reservation for a certain day. And another party showed up and said that they were them. And so the hostess knew where to set them and set them at the place that was reserved for this church. Then the church showed up. And they're like, what's going on? And the host is like, they said that they were you, the party of blah, blah, blah. And so the church, they had, the restaurant had to rearrange all kinds of tables, and it was very uncomfortable where they were sitting, and it was very hard for the waitresses and waiters to help that situation. And unfortunately, the church went back the next day, the leader of the church, and approached the restaurant owner and said, "We're not coming here ever again. Your food is good, your service is great, but what happened the other day, well, that's just unacceptable." And she, being a new Christian, was confused. Why in the world is this pastor of this big church in her own city upset with what happened? I told her, Christians are assholes. There is nothing worse than a brand new Christian who is not a theologian in the Bible. There is nothing worse than a Christian who just received a scalp for Jesus, and they do not understand through wisdom and knowledge on how to love your neighbor. And this pastor set the example of what big churches do when they don't get their way. The situation was simple. Another party showed up claiming it was them. They got seated. Why didn't the Christian pastor understand that the Wiccan coven that infiltrated their church knew that they were going to this luncheon at this restaurant and subverted it on purpose to piss them off, to make them look bad? And it worked. You see, if you don't understand your enemy, and if you don't research your enemy, you will fall for their tricks, their lies, and all evil they'll throw at you. Now, I know I am preaching to the choir. The 33 of you here tonight feel the same way I do and agree with a lot of things that I think about. But as I was telling this restaurant owner, Christians are assholes. It's not that I hate them. It's just they have no wisdom. If this Christian pastor would have understood his Bible, he would have forgave them. He would have loved their neighbor. But instead, because the infiltration of his own church, the Wiccans, the Satanists, the witches and warlocks that are told to go to that church and sow discord, sleep with the pastor, make the pastor mad, do everything you can to make them upset, to screw them up and break up that church. And I don't understand why I go into churches and I don't see any protocols of trying to find the witches and warlocks. They're your enemy. They're there to lie, steal, cheat, destroy, and kill any opportunity that church has for growth. If this pastor recognized he was just an ambassador, then he would treat the restaurant owner as an ambassador of his country. Heaven. But instead, he set the example that churchgoers or pastors at churches, if they don't get their way, or if a mistake happens, they don't let it go. That's not loving your neighbor. I would never go to that church. And this restaurant owner is a dear friend of mine. And it's not because I'm favoring. It's because the lack of discernment. Those pastors are drinking the milk. I eat the meat. The kind of stuff that I bring to you guys is meat-oriented. We don't focus on the peas. We focus on the steak. That's what gets us a closer relationship with God. But you can't do it unless you get into that Bible and understand it and ask questions and build that relationship with God. To prevent you from being that pastor being upset at a restaurant for making one simple mistake. And that mistake cost that restaurant $500 a month in business. Easily. Because, and I'll never forget this, and this isn't even biblical. When I was a manager for a Round Table Pizza, my district manager was teaching me the importance of making the best pizza you possibly can and believe in your ingredients. I was very young. And as he was teaching me how to make the pizza, he was asking me questions. And the question was, James, this pizza, does this look good? I go, yep, perfect. He goes, I agree. We put everything together. This is how I want to see it. Now let's put it through the oven. And we did. And then we took it out, and then we cut it. And I go, how does it look? I'm like, it's perfect. He's like, great. This is how I want to serve this pizza. Okay? Then he served the pizza. And then he came back to me. He's like, so James, tell me, how many people do you think they are going to tell about that pizza? And being young, I thought, well, probably at least one or two people because we put our whole effort into it. He said, well, unfortunately, you're wrong. You see, they expected that pizza to be perfect. That's why they came here. And usually, the numbers are there. They don't tell a single soul. They went there, they got what they wanted, and then they leave. No problem. I'm like scratching my head. Where are you going with this? Then he turned it on me. And he said, now, what if we cut that pizza wrong or we forgot to add an ingredient on it and gave it to that person? They went home and they opened it up and saw that it wasn't what they ordered. I go, well, that's where we need customer service. They call us up and we'll remake them a pizza. We'll give them a coupon. He goes, that's good. But how many people do you think they would tell about that awful experience of going home with a pizza that wasn't what they ordered? And I'm scratching my head. I'm like, I don't know, 1, maybe 2. He goes, 10. That's the number. The next day, they're going to go to work, and they're going to tell their coworkers, man, I usually go to Round Table every day, but man, this time, they made me a horrible pizza. And then that person hears about it, like, well, I ain't going to go to Round Table anymore. 10 people find out about it. 10. Now, the person may have told 1 or 2, but the data shows it goes to 10 people that hear about the horrible pizza that they had at Round Table Pizza. And that blew me away. And I'll tell you what, it's not biblical, but it should be. If we don't represent ourselves as kingdom of God, and we do like this pastor did, guess how many people are going to find out about what a horrible pastor. You see what I mean? You have to make that pizza perfect because that's what they're expecting. When you are a pastor of a church, you are supposed to love your neighbor. That's what they're expecting. And if you don't know anything about your enemy, unfortunately, your naiveness and maybe youngness will have a detrimental effect in the future. And all of this news that we read and I report to you guys, none of it matters. What is the news designed to do? It's designed to make you feel like you have no control and it's somebody's fault. If we focus on the news, we're focusing directly and straight into propaganda. And propaganda has never been good for any country, ever. For the moment propaganda is legal in a country, you've already accepted a dictatorship or socialist or communist nation. You're not free anymore because they can properly lie to you legally. Anything that comes out of the mouths of reporters, you should know that they are paid and their editor edits the real truth out to favor corporations that have more control than the United States of America. Remember, Washington, D.C. is its own country and it's its own corporation. And since 1871, when we filed for our second bankruptcy, we gave up our debt or gave up our country to be in debt for the crown. We became a corporation with a social security number. A basic ID. Where back in World War I, World War II, to get an ID to identify who you are, that was considered Nazism. Yet we need an ID to go fishing, to drive a car, to have a baby. You can't go into a hospital without ID. Basically, everything we present to the world are papers. And you think that your voting matters federally or nationwide, again, you're kidding yourself. It doesn't. What you see up there is a stage. It's a play. It's a movie. It's not real. It's designed to make you think that you have a country, the illusion of a country, and the illusion of freedom. When you cannot even leave your country without showing a passport. And you can't get back in without showing your passport. That's not freedom. And meanwhile, I have to continue reporting on government overreach, like 5G cell towers, and the effects of them, and what the government has the ability to do to create zombie apocalypses. But the point of this whole thing is you are not an American. If you watch my show, you're a Christian. Most of you are. And what that means is whatever America goes through, that's not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to represent the kingdom of heaven, period. You can go vote, whatever, but don't expect your vote to actually count in a rigged system. And this rigged system has been rigged at least since 1871. That's all. You are responsible for making the best pizza you can. You are responsible for representing the kingdom of heaven. You live in a fallen world and are an ambassador that is not from here. And when you read articles like Florida can enforce ban on puberty blockers and gender surgeries for children, says appeals court, why are you getting involved in this catchphrase to catch you and grab you, get you angry at one side? In heaven, there is no gender. You're not from here. You're just an ambassador. You're here to represent. And before war ever happens, don't the countries pull their ambassadors out? That could make another case for the rapture or harpazo. So while U.S. rushes warships to the Middle East to deter Iran-Israeli war, or Russia customs arrest German with 1 million in gold bars, and Mexico pauses relations with U.S. Canadian embassies amid judicial reform concerns, none of that stuff matters, guys. This isn't your country, guys. The moment you accepted Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, you became a child of the Most High, an ambassador and a representation of heaven. You don't belong here. Earth is not supposed to be loved by you. If we could all just get that and love our neighbor, then we could do some serious change. And it doesn't come politically. It comes from inside you and the bubble that people step into. They step into another world. It happens to me all the time. Wherever I go, people are attracted to me. And it's not because I'm handsome. It's because they see this light in me and this energy that they want. It's not attraction physically. There's something about this guy. I can't put my finger on it. I just need to talk to him. That's what you need to be. And you can be that. Simple. By asking God, first, who are you? Who am I? And can we start a relationship? And then get to know God. Read his Bible. It's a little manual he gave us, even though it's been hacked. Who cares? The truth's written on your heart. That's what Jesus says. So quit worrying about the Bible and the interpretations and the Strong's Concordance and bringing in the accusers. All of that does not reflect loving your neighbor. If Jesus came to earth and walked amongst us, he would be the most hated thing here from the Christians. You were thinking LGBTQ. No. Jesus would be hanging out with them. It would be safer for him in their arms than in the Christian world. God is misunderstood. Same with Jesus. We can't rely on man. And when they hand us their interpretation saying, well, this is it. This is the solid one. That's it right there. There's no other better translation. No, there's thousands of translations. When people ask me, well, what book do you use? It doesn't matter. Go get a Bible. It doesn't matter what it is. Just read it. God will speak to you through it. It's not just the words. It's the idea of wanting to get closer to God. The idea that you bought the Bible to get closer to God. Not because you wanted the accuracy of it. You don't get accuracy in this world. This world is ran by a liar. the father of all lies. How do you think you're going to get the truth from that? You won't. So we don't have to rely on the Bible. We just rely on our relationship with God and want a relationship. That's where my life changed, where I actually wanted to get to know him. I wanted to know God's middle name. I wanted to know what's his favorite color. What kind of ice cream does he like? I wanted to know everything about him. And he wanted to share. We're all in a hurry. We're all in a hurry to die. We wake up, we shit, shower, and shave. We head on out. We go to work or do whatever we do to make a living. And we're in a hurry for the weekend. Then we have a case of the Mondays. Where's the love in that? You're not representing anything other than you being in a hurry to die. What's the rush? Where are we going with this? You will have peace when you let go of everything. And when I say let go, you literally take a nap. If you think that God won't be the CEO of your company, you're mistaken. And the proof that you have faith that he is going to do the sales and marketing for your company is you taking a nap, saying, God's got this. No, it's not being lazy. It's about trusting in your belief system. All of us fall short according to the glory of God. And it's not a bad thing. Once you know who you are, and that, yeah, you're a mess up. I am too. It's okay. You come to acceptance. And you let go of the hurry of the world. And you give all of your worry over to God. For him to take over and do those things for you so you don't have to do it. He's been wanting to do that ever since. He's been knocking on your door and you've been like, no, I got this one. No, I don't need you right now. I'll do it. What's the hurry? Let him do it. That means putting all your trust and faith in him. And did you know that worry could be considered a sin? Because you're not putting your trust in God. And it's not because he wants the glory and he wants you to pay attention to him. No. It's because he's been waiting to do these things for you so you don't have to worry about it. One day you're going to look back as you're talking with Jesus face to face and look back at all those times you were stressed out, confused, angry, mad, divided, hurt. And you would have known, and Jesus would have said, if only you just give all that stuff to me, you wouldn't worry about all of that. You wouldn't have worried about all that stuff. You could have done what you wanted to do. You don't have to be what the typical Christian is. Don't look at the church as a cookie cutter form of spitting out disciples. A relationship between you and God is where I don't want to say magic, I hate that word, but is where you exude honor, glory, and that spark that you guys see in me. I always say I'm just a hick from Oregon. And I don't understand why people, say, oh my God, you're so smart. I don't get it. Because I don't feel that way. This is how I think. I thought everybody thought this way. But if I didn't grow and build a relationship with God, I wouldn't have the wisdom and the knowledge that I have now. And that starts with a relationship. Tomorrow night, I am going to not be here, okay? Urban is going to take over, and he's going to be doing it for the weekend. So basically, Thursday night, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I'll be back Monday. Okay, Monday night, I'll have a show. I will be on a small little vacation that I do every year. We're going to go camping with some friends and hear some music and hang out. In the meantime, Urban is going to play or start the show at 6 p.m. Eastern, or 9 p.m. Eastern instead of midnight Eastern. What he was did it because he was exhausted. He's on the East Coast. I'm on the West Coast. So he's going to start it 3 hours before I normally do. So you guys are going to get some cool information here coming up, especially tomorrow night. I am very excited to see what your thoughts are on the exchange between an Illuminist and an actual rabbi. Holy cow, the recording will just it's unbelievable, and I think it's important everybody listens to it. In fact, it's one of those recordings that the Anti-Defamation League doesn't want out, and they will attack you if you play this recording. So tomorrow night is going to be a very interesting subject, and Urban will take good care of you, okay? God bless you. God keep you. God, thank you for all that you do. Thank you for supporting me. Thank you for your love in me, your trust in me. I am not going anywhere. I love doing this every night, and hopefully, as the years go by, things can get easier for me where I could do this a little bit earlier. But in the meantime, that's just what it is. This has been Cause Before Symptom. I'm your host, James Carner. Tune in next Monday night when I'll be live at 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Don't forget to go to jamescarner.com and sign up for my newsletter. It's the only way I can get a hold of you if I get shut down here. Also, go to elitepotion.com and buy my product. You will support me and the show, and you'll feel better, I promise. And last thing, can you do me one favor only? Just love your neighbor, please. If everyone did that, this world would be a better place. See you next week.